That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, haunted by the boy's smile and Clara's silence. He had to know. The next morning, his hands trembling, Ethan sent Clara a message. "Please. I need to talk. Just once. I need to know the truth." To his surprise, she replied. They met the following day at a quiet cafe on North Halsted, a place once filled with love and laughter. But today, the air buzzed with tension. Clara sat across from him, arms folded, her expression unreadable. Ethan didn't waste time. His voice was low, unsteady. "Is Noah my son?" There was a pause, so long it felt like the world had stopped spinning. Clara's lips parted. Her voice came out clear, but heavy. "Yes." Noah was his. Conceived during the final weeks of their marriage, a life born just as theirs was falling apart. Ethan sat there, stunned. Everything he thought he'd moved past suddenly came crashing back. And the question now wasn't if he could be in Noah's life, but how. Clara explained everything. How she had wrestled with the choice to keep the pregnancy from Ethan, fearing that involving him would only stir more chaos into an already broken life. She spoke calmly, but the pain behind her words was unmistakable. She hadn't acted out of revenge, but out of protection. For herself. And for Noah. Ethan sat in stunned silence, every word hitting him like a wave. Her voice painted the full picture, not just of what he had lost, but of the emotional wreckage his past choices had left behind. The regret washed over him. Not just for missing Noah's birth, but for every first word, every laugh, every moment he had unknowingly missed. But beneath the sorrow, something powerful began to grow. Love. Love for a son he had just met. A fierce, overwhelming need to be present, to make things right. Their conversation wasn't warm, but it was honest. And it ended with a cautious agreement. They would explore co-parenting, carefully, slowly, with Noah's well-being as the highest priority. Ethan left that cafe with one mission, to become the father his son deserved. The very next day, he sought legal guidance. He needed to understand what his rights were, and what responsibilities he had to step into now. The lawyer didn't sugarcoat anything. There were forms, tests, possibilities of court hearings, and the reminder that any step he took had to be grounded in what was best for Noah, not just his own desires. The legal process was sobering. Every session was a lesson, in law yes, but also in humility. Ethan realized quickly, this wasn't just about proving paternity. It was about proving himself. So he dug in. He bought books about parenting. Signed up for workshops. Sat with other dads at support groups. He reached out to old friends, fathers he used to envy, and asked them for advice. Noah wasn't just a responsibility. He was a gift. And Ethan didn't want to parent out of guilt. He wanted to build something real. Something lasting. A relationship built on trust, love, and presence. But he also knew the road ahead wasn't simple. Clara had a life, one that had moved on without him. Noah had routines, rhythms, and a mother who had built everything from scratch. Ethan couldn't just barge in. This was a delicate dance, knowing when to step forward, and when to wait. When he finally found the courage to tell his parents, the room fell silent. His mother cried first, not out of anger, but sorrow for all that had been missed. Still she embraced him, whispering hope that there was still time to make things right. Her words gave Ethan the strength he needed. His father was harder to read. Stoic, quiet. For a moment, Ethan feared judgment. But then, a quiet nod, a sigh, and a hand on his shoulder. "We all mess up, son," he said. "But if that boy is yours, then go be there for him." That night, the family sat around the table, talking about a child none of them had met, but already cared about deeply. They made plans for visits, birthday gifts, holidays. Noah had never stepped into their lives, yet he had already become a part of their story. Of course, the journey wasn't without tension. There were awkward pauses, guilt, regret. But there was also something else rising through the cracks. Hope. In the weeks that followed, Ethan made careful, intentional steps toward Noah's world. He didn't barge in, he reached out. He started sending letters, not to Clara, but directly to Noah. Each note carefully worded, filled with gentle stories and warm, simple drawings. He included small gifts too, books, puzzles, art supplies, The kinds of things a curious little boy might love. In every envelope was a silent message. I see you. I care about you. I want to know you. These letters weren't grand gestures. They were bridges, one page at a time. And slowly, something began to shift. Every small gift Ethan sent to Noah came with meaning. A dinosaur puzzle. A sketch pad. A bedtime story about courage. Each one picked with care, not for show, but because Ethan had taken the time to learn what made Noah smile. Clara had quietly passed along those little details. His favorite animal, the way he liked to build things, his curiosity about the stars. And Ethan listened. Alongside the gifts came letters. Simple, honest notes written in the warm, clear voice of a man who was trying to introduce himself to his son. He didn't try to be poetic. He didn't try to explain everything. He just told stories, about his own childhood, about silly mistakes and favorite games. About how nervous he was, and how much he hoped Noah might want to get to know him too. Every word carried sincerity, and a quiet, unspoken plea. Can we try? From a distance, Clara watched Noah's reactions. Every laugh, every question, every time he asked, "Can I hear another letter?" filled her with cautious hope. Could this work? Maybe. Eventually, she arranged a few short video calls between them, always supervised. The first one was awkward. Noah didn't say much. Ethan stumbled over his words. But there was no pressure. No expectations. And little by little, something genuine began to grow. Noah started to smile more during the calls. He asked about Ethan's dog. He wanted to know what games he played as a kid. Their connection, though still young, had roots now, and they were starting to take hold. But for Clara, it wasn't so easy. She still carried the pain. The betrayal hadn't disappeared just because Ethan had changed. There were days she still heard echoes of the past, and felt the weight of everything he had put her through. She was torn. She wanted this relationship to grow for Noah's sake, but her instinct to protect him never left her side. In therapy, Clara opened up about her fears, the sleepless nights, the quiet doubts. Her therapist helped her sift through it all and offered one crucial piece of advice. Set boundaries. Speak your truth. So Clara did. She and Ethan sat down for a tough conversation. There were no raised voices, just truth laid bare between two people who had once shared everything. They agreed on one thing: Noah comes first. Their relationship would be about co-parenting, not reconnection, not romance. Ethan respected that. He didn't push. He didn't ask for more. He was simply grateful for the chance to show up. And little by little, Clara noticed it. His patience. His gentleness. The way he never made promises he couldn't keep. It didn't erase the past, but it softened the jagged edges around her heart. They both realized they needed help to navigate this fragile new chapter. So they brought in a professional mediator, someone experienced in guiding families through complexity. That first mediation session was heavy. They walked in with their hopes and fears bundled tight. The room buzzed with unsaid things. But the mediator was calm, clear, and firm. Together, they discussed everything: schedules, holidays, school meetings, how to handle emergencies. Nothing was too small. Nothing too big. And slowly, something began to take shape, a real plan. It wasn't just about logistics, it was about healing. They talked. They listened. They cried a little. They forgave a little more. And by the end of it, they had something they hadn't had in years. Clarity. A co-parenting agreement was drafted, one that respected Noah's rhythms, Clara's instincts, and Ethan's desire to be fully present. It was a major turning point. A new path. But it came with a silent, sobering truth. The past still lived between them. And it could come back, at any moment. This new phase of co-parenting wasn't just about legal papers. For Clara and Ethan, it was a quiet vow to protect the peace around Noah. Ethan's first in-person visit, under Clara's watchful eye, carried a weight that made his palms sweat. He arrived holding a backpack filled with books, action figures, and a soft blanket, small tokens of love he hoped would mean something to the little boy he barely knew. The visit took place in Clara's living room, a room that once held their shared laughter, now rearranged with caution. The space was familiar, but not his anymore. Clara stood nearby, not intervening, but not leaving either, her presence a silent reminder of the fragile trust now between them. Noah peeked from behind her legs, clutching her hand with a shy grip. He didn't say much at first, just observed Ethan with big, curious eyes. Then, slowly, cautiously, the ice began to melt. Ethan knelt to Noah's level. No pressure. Just gentle offers, a game, a book, a silly dinosaur voice. And bit by bit, Noah responded. A tiny smile. A laugh. A moment of connection. That afternoon was filled with little victories and quiet tension. Ethan looked to Clara often, picking up on her subtle nods, her slight shifts. She didn't say much, but she guided him without words. The visit only lasted a couple hours, but it felt enormous. It was a start. And so they scheduled more. Each time Ethan came over, he brought not just gifts, but presents. He learned Noah's rhythms, when he got tired, what made him excited, what made him pout. He adjusted, adapted, and learned how to show up without pushing too hard. Some days were beautiful, full of giggles, blocks, and crayons. Other days weren't. There were tantrums, silent stares, moments when Noah refused to engage. But Ethan didn't run. He stayed. He read more parenting books, joined online support groups, asked other dads for advice. He studied child development the way he used to study law, hungry to learn, desperate to get it right. He didn't want to miss anything ever again. Clara noticed. She kept her distance emotionally, but she saw the effort. And though her heart still carried bruises, part of her softened, just a little, seeing Ethan try so hard. She didn't tell him she was proud, but she allowed him to stay longer. And that was something. Over time, Ethan brought a box of snacks Noah liked. He remembered the bedtime story he loved. He learned how to soothe his son when the tears came suddenly and without reason. As the visits stretched from hours into full afternoons, something shifted. Noah started asking about him when he wasn't there. Is Dad coming today? Can I show him my drawing? Clara's heart twisted every time she heard it, both joy and fear braided together. Ethan's chest swelled with each new bond, his son's laughter becoming the anchor that kept him from drifting into guilt again. He was there when Noah rode his little bike without training wheels for the first time. He was there when Noah came running in with a messy art project, shouting, "Dad, look what I made." And in those moments, Ethan didn't think about the past. He didn't think about what he'd broken. He just felt the pure, overwhelming beauty of being a father. But for Clara, it wasn't so simple. She watched their growing bond with cautious wonder. She was happy for Noah, yes, but haunted by memories. There were nights she'd lie in bed, listening to the house creak, unsure if letting Ethan back in, even just as a parent, was the right thing. She didn't trust easily anymore. But she couldn't deny the peace on Noah's face when Ethan was around. Or the way her son's world had begun to feel whole again. It was becoming impossible to ignore. Noah was changing. He laughed more. Talked about Daddy often. Sometimes in the middle of dinner, he'd excitedly bring up something Ethan had said or done. It was clear that Ethan's presence was having a real effect. And for Clara, that brought both comfort and conflict. Her heart was pulled in two directions, joy for Noah, and fear for what history might repeat. But still, she couldn't deny it anymore. Ethan was trying. So she did something brave. She let herself believe, just a little. Not in romance, not in reconciliation, but in the idea that maybe, just maybe, they could work as a team. Still, the path forward wasn't simple. Their emotions were complicated. Their roles had changed. So they reached out for help, together. They began family therapy, bringing Noah along. Their therapist, Dr. Lena, was warm but firm, someone who knew how to untangle messy hearts and overlapping pain. In those sessions, Ethan began to truly see Clara's hurt, not just the betrayal, but the quiet strength it took for her to raise Noah alone. For Clara, therapy gave her a safe place to speak her fears, to voice her doubts about Ethan's reliability without judgment. Even little Noah, though young, responded. He was perceptive, more than they expected. He picked up on their tones, their glances, the atmosphere. And therapy helped him feel safe. Seen. Loved by both parents, even if they weren't together. As the sessions continued, something shifted. Clara and Ethan started seeing each other not through the lens of exes, but as partners in parenting. Not perfect, but committed. Not healed, but healing. But their progress didn't go unnoticed. Friends, neighbors, co-workers. People started whispering, some with support, others with skepticism. Are they getting back together? Can Ethan really be trusted now? Is she making a mistake? The questions came quietly, but often. For Clara, who had kept her struggles private for years, it was suffocating. She found herself defending choices she had made for her son, not for anyone's approval. Ethan had his own battles. Some people still saw him as the man who walked away. The absent father. The guy who didn't show up when it counted. But he held his head high, choosing to focus on those who supported him. The ones who believed people could grow. Through it all, Clara and Ethan stood firm, shielding Noah from the noise. They presented a united front, refusing to let gossip or doubt shake what they were building. And then came Noah's 4th birthday. Clara sent the invitation, and it wasn't just about cake and balloons. It was a symbol. A sign that she trusted Ethan enough to share this moment, this milestone. Ethan was stunned, honored, and determined to make it special. The party was small, close friends, family, warm smiles. Nothing grand, but everything that mattered. And most importantly, Noah was glowing with happiness. For the first time, he had both of his parents in the same room, not fighting, not distant, but laughing, talking, being there. Ethan's presence didn't feel forced. It felt right. He helped with decorations. He played games with the kids. He shared warm conversation with Clara's friends, and even her family. Every gesture he made said one thing: I'm here. For real. That birthday wasn't just about turning 4. It was a celebration of all the tiny hard-won steps it took to get there, steps toward forgiveness, teamwork, and showing up. And in that joyful room filled with laughter, Clara looked over at Ethan and thought, maybe this could work. Noah's birthday party had come and gone, but its impact lingered. For Ethan, it had been a turning point, a public show of his commitment, a chance to show Clara and their loved ones that he wasn't going anywhere again. For Clara, the day was bittersweet. Seeing Noah so joyful warmed her heart, but it also reminded her of how far they had come, through heartbreak, silence, and rebuilding. Still, the celebration hinted at something fragile but powerful, that maybe they really could build something steady for Noah's sake. Back in therapy, Dr. Lena pushed them to take another brave step, confront their past. That session was raw. Ethan opened up, not just about what he did, but why. He spoke about the guilt that haunted him, the shame that followed him like a shadow. He confessed how his mistakes had rippled through both their families and left him hating the man he had become. Clara shared, too, about the crushing silence she endured, the strength she had to summon to carry on when she felt like she was falling apart, about raising a child alone, wondering if she was enough. That conversation wasn't easy, but it was cleansing, like tearing down a crumbling wall so something new could grow. And just when they were finding stable ground, Sienna Blake came back. Unannounced. Like a ghost Ethan had tried to bury, she messaged him, "Can we talk?" She claimed she wanted closure. But what she really brought was chaos. Afraid to hide anything from Clara, Ethan told her everything. They agreed he'd meet Sienna in public, somewhere safe. The meeting was cold. Ethan made it clear, "My family is my priority now. There's no space for this in my life anymore." But Sienna didn't take it well. Her voice cracked with emotion, sadness turning into rage. She hinted that she still had the power to blow everything up. That if she wanted to, she could make things messy. Ethan left shaken. Back home, he and Clara regrouped. They weren't letting anyone tear apart what they were building. They went straight to their lawyer, drafted formal protections, reviewed boundaries, locked things down. They even returned to Dr. Lena, who reminded them, "Keep Noah's world steady. If you're calm, he will be." They left therapy not just calmer, but stronger, more united. And as if life wanted to test that strength, it soon did. They finalized a formal co-parenting agreement, with clear duties, emergency plans, and rules for any outside interference, like Sienna. They doubled down on Noah's safety, creating a secure, loving space. Their teamwork showed, and not just in legal papers. Noah could feel it. Their bond grew through shared school pickups, doctor's appointments, weekend hikes. The new normal began to feel, well, normal. The awkward silences faded. Clara and Ethan no longer walked on eggshells. Their conversations became smoother, more respectful, rooted in trust. Then, winter hit. And Noah got sick. It wasn't anything extreme, but it was enough to shake their rhythm. Sleepless nights, ER visits, managing medicine schedules, it tested them. But it also brought them closer. They leaned on each other, comforted Noah together, made decisions without arguing. And in those quiet, tired moments, something unspoken passed between them: we can do hard things together. Still, not everything was smooth. Disagreements came up, over bedtime, screen time, parenting styles. But they talked it out, learned how to listen, how to compromise. These little bumps helped them grow. And as the months rolled on, the people around them noticed. Friends, neighbors, coworkers, the same ones who once doubted Ethan, started saying things like, "You two are doing something really special." Clara no longer had to explain her choices. Ethan no longer had to prove he was serious. The results spoke louder than words. Noah was thriving. But life wasn't done testing them yet. As time passed, friends, neighbors, and even strangers began to see Ethan and Clara not just as exes raising a child, but as a united team, working hand in hand to give Noah the best life possible. This growing support from their community became a lifeline. Kind words, open arms, and invitations to join events as a family helped restore their confidence. For Noah, it meant stability, a village of love backing him up. For Ethan and Clara, it was proof that maybe, just maybe, the pieces of their broken past were coming together in a new, stronger form. Their co-parenting bond only deepened. They laughed more freely, communicated with more respect, and found moments of comfort in each other's presence. Slowly, without even realizing it, their connection was changing. What started as a partnership out of necessity had become something more, something familiar and warm. One sunny afternoon, while they were out with Noah, his laughter echoing in the background, Ethan turned to Clara, his heart pounding. He took a deep breath and, with all the courage he could muster, asked her something she never expected. "Would you consider giving us another chance? As husband and wife?" Clara froze. Tears welled in her eyes, not of pain this time, but of overwhelming emotion. She didn't respond right away. How could she? So much had changed. Ethan had changed. She had changed. This wasn't just a proposal, it was a challenge to her heart to reopen itself to the man who once broke it. She asked for time to think, and Ethan respected that. They both turned to their families for guidance. The people who had witnessed their worst days now stood with hope in their eyes. "Whatever you choose," they said, "choose happiness. For yourselves. For Noah." With cautious hearts, Ethan and Clara planned a quiet weekend away, just the two of them, far from the noise and reminders of what had been. It wasn't about romance. It was about truth. About asking hard questions, revisiting the pain, and deciding if what they had now was strong enough to begin again. They talked until the early hours, cried over memories, and smiled at new dreams. Somewhere in that silence, they found an answer. And it was yes. But the story didn't end there, because choosing love again doesn't erase the past. It only proves you're willing to fight harder for the future. The weekend getaway turned into something more than just a break. It became a deep, emotional reckoning. Ethan and Clara sat for hours talking, not avoiding the hard stuff but diving straight into it. They revisited the darkest corners of their past, the things they had done and said, the things they had failed to say. There were tears. There were apologies. And unexpectedly, there were moments of laughter too. They began to rediscover each other, not the versions shaped by pain and mistakes, but the people they had fallen in love with years ago. By the time they returned home, they had made a quiet but powerful decision. They were ready to try again. Not to repeat what they had, but to rebuild from the ground up, stronger, wiser, and together. Soon after, they planned a small, heartfelt wedding in Central Park, surrounded by a close circle of family and friends who had walked with them through every trial. Noah, their bright, joyful son, was right at the heart of it all. He held their hands as they said their vows again, this time with more weight, more truth. It wasn't a fairy tale ceremony, it was real. Raw. Filled with speeches that remembered their lows and honored their climb back to love. It wasn't about starting over, it was about moving forward with everything they had learned. After the wedding, they bought a cozy home just outside of Austin, Texas, a place with space for Noah to run wild in the backyard and for laughter to echo through the halls. Every room they painted together, every piece of furniture they chose side by side, was a quiet victory over the past. To Noah, it was magic. A new bedroom. A swing set. Two parents who showed up for him, really showed up. To Ethan and Clara, the house was more than just walls and a roof. It was a sanctuary. A symbol of survival. Proof that love can be broken and still come back even stronger. In the evenings, they'd sit in the living room, reflecting on everything they had endured. The betrayal. The heartbreak. The silence. And the healing. Every conversation was a reminder of how far they'd come, and how committed they were to never going back. Their story had changed. It had matured into something fierce and honest. They had become not just lovers or parents, but partners in the truest sense. As they looked ahead, planning for new memories, adventures, and challenges, they did so with confidence. Because they knew now that second chances don't just happen. They're earned, fought for, and cherished. And through it all, one truth remained: even after everything, love had come back. Not perfect, but real. Forgiven. And ready to last. That's the end of this story. What did it teach you? Leave a comment below and let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this again. And hey, share this video with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and